All right, so we're diving into some seriously creepy stuff today, folks.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking security footage, strange sounds, a workplace that's giving off some major creepypasta vibes.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
So it's all about this security guard, Tim Saver, online. He goes by Team Saver, and all this weird stuff he starts experiencing on his night shifts. And thing is, he decides to share it all online.
Hmm. Interesting. But why risk your job like that? I mean, was he looking for his 15 minutes of fame? Or was it more of a cry for help, you think?
That's what we're here to figure out.
I'm in.
What gets me about Tim's story is how it mixes the ordinary with the totally eerie.
Right, because he's just a security guard, right?
Yeah.
Walking the same halls every night, probably battling boredom more than anything else.
Exactly. And then suddenly, bam, things start happening that just don't add up. It's like his boring, routine job takes this sudden turn into something straight out of a horror movie.
And that's what makes it so relatable, don't you think?
Yeah.
We've all had those mind-numbingly boring jobs where you're just counting down the minutes. But what would it take to push someone to risk it all and broadcast whatever is happening at their workplace to the whole world?
Okay, so before we go any further, let's back up a bit. Who is this Team Saver guy?
Right, let's get into it.
Well, his real name is Tim Saver, and as far as we can tell, he was just your average security guard working the graveyard shift. He never actually says exactly where he worked or what kind of facility it was.
Ooh, keeping the mystery alive, I see.
Right. All he says is that it's massive. Like, he mentions patrolling something like 26 different corridors.
Wow, 26 corridors. That's a lot of ground to cover. Talk about eerie.
Definitely sets the stage, right?
For sure.
So anyway, at the beginning, his videos are pretty much what you'd expect. He's just walking the halls, talking to the camera about his night, like he's trying to stay awake or something.
I feel that those night shifts can be brutal.
Totally. And he keeps mentioning these long, empty corridors, the echoing silence. It's kind of creepy, like he's accidentally setting the scene for a horror film.
And that's our cue, right?
Huh.
The audience.
No.
Our minds go straight to that creepy place. He's feeding us these little details, the silence, the hallways that seem to go on forever, and our imaginations just take over.
100%. But then things start to get weird.
Go
He
down.
starts mentioning these smells.
Smells like, what, someone microwaving fish in the break room.
No, no. Not your typical office smells. He describes them as foul, rancid, almost unnatural.
Unnatural. Like how? Give me some details.
He doesn't really go into specifics, and I think that just makes it worse. He's clearly disturbed by them, though.
Yeah, I bet.
You can practically hear it in his voice, the way he's searching for the right words.
Right, struggling to describe something he's never encountered before.
Exactly. It's like he knows these aren't just regular bad smells, there's something else. He even talks about how he tried to track down the source, thought maybe something had died in the walls or something, but he never finds anything.
Okay, see, now that's what gets me. A bad smell you can explain away is one thing, but something unexplained like that, that'll mess with your head.
Totally. Like, it's one thing to have like a weird smell in your house, You can usually figure out what it is.
Exactly. Stale coffee grounds, that forgotten container of leftovers in the back of the fridge.
But when you can't find the source of a smell, it's like this little seed of doubt starts to grow.
100%. And it's that doubt that really starts to eat away at you.
And for Tim, it wasn't just the smells. Soon he started hearing things too. Unexplained noises, thumps, scrapes, like something was moving through the building with him.
See, this is where it goes from unsettling to downright creepy.
Right. I mean, you're alone in this massive facility, the middle of the night.
And your senses are already on high alert because of the smells. You're primed for something bad to happen.
Exactly. And to his credit, Tim tries to rationalize it at first. Thinks maybe it's just the pipes or animals getting in or something.
Which is what we all do, right?
Yeah.
We look for the logical explanation when we're faced with something we can't explain.
Totally. But you can tell he's starting to doubt himself.
Oh, for sure. And this is where things could have gone in a totally different direction for him. I mean, he could have just dismissed it, right?
Yeah.
Convinced himself it was nothing.
Right.
But instead, he goes to management, tells them what he's been experiencing.
What did they say?
Well, from what we can piece together from his videos, they basically tell him he's imagining things.
The classic it's all in your head routine. So frustrating.
And the worst. But honestly, I think that reaction from his bosses probably just made him more determined to prove that something real was going on.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So to get some hard evidence, he decides to start recording his rounds.
Smart. Pixar, it didn't happen, right? So what'd he get?
Well, at first, it's just him reacting to things that we can't see. He'll jump at a sound or swing the camera around quickly, but there's never anything concrete on film.
Which is just fuel for the online skeptics.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
People are ruthless,
Ugh.
saying he's making it up, that he's just trying to be the next big viral sensation.
Ugh, the internet can be brutal. So what did Tim do?
Well, he was determined to get proof, so he decided to up his game. He sets up his phone to record while he's on patrol.
Okay, so this is where it gets good.
This is where it gets really interesting, because he manages to capture this audio.
What kind of audio?
It's hard to describe.
Yeah.
Not like jump out of your skin scary or anything, at least not on its own. But when you hear it, with the context of everything else that's going on, it's chilling. He talks about feeling watched, followed, and then you hear these strange, dragging noises, whispers. It just creates this incredibly unsettling atmosphere.
Okay, now that's creepy.
And to make matters worse, according to Tim, management tries to explain away the audio too.
Seriously? What'd they say this time?
They said it was probably just a draft causing a door to move, creating those dragging sounds.
A draft. Come on.
Right. It's like they're grasping at straws, desperately trying to find a mundane explanation for something that has clearly freaked out both Tim and a good chunk of his online audience.
Because at this point, it's not really about the evidence anymore, is it? It's about the way the company is reacting. Or rather, not reacting. It's like they're going out of their way to bury this whole thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that always raises red flags, right? Like, what are they so afraid of?
Right. Like, what are they trying to hide?
Exactly. Is it just bad publicity they're worried about? Or is there something more to it, something they absolutely don't want getting out?
And this is where things get really interesting, because it's around this time that Tim's videos take a turn.
Oh, how so?
Well, for one, he starts using this text-to-speech program for his narration.
Interesting.
And the events themselves, they start to escalate. Big time. Like, whatever's happening, it's not just lurking in the shadows anymore. It's getting bolder, more frequent. And then, well, that's when he mentions the crying.
Crying. Hold on. Who's crying?
He doesn't say, just mentions hearing a woman crying.
Okay, wow. This whole thing just took a really creepy turn.
Right. And this detail, this mention of crying, it's fascinating for a few reasons. For one, it introduces this whole new element to the story. Like, up until this point, it's all been weird smells, strange sounds, but now there's this human element.
And it's an element that's both really specific and incredibly unsettling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we've all heard crying.
Yeah.
It's a primal sound. Makes you stop and wonder what's going on if someone's hurt.
Exactly. It evokes this instant empathy, this concern, and in the context of everything else Tim has described, well, it takes on a whole new meaning.
Absolutely. It makes it real.
And the thing is, he actually shares a snippet of the audio in one of his videos.
Yeah.
But it's so faint, so muffled, that it's almost impossible to tell if it's actually crying or just, sounds playing tricks on your ears.
But which, let's be honest, is pretty easy to imagine happening in a big, empty building in the middle of the night.
Oh, 100%. And that's what makes this so compelling, right? This ambiguity. Because we're forced to confront our own perceptions.
Right. What do we want to believe? Are we more inclined to trust Tim's story now that there's this human element involved?
Yeah.
Or does it make the whole thing seem even more far-fetched?
It really makes you think.
It does. It's like he's giving us this puzzle with a bunch of missing pieces and letting us try to put it together ourselves.
Which brings us to the final chapter in this whole saga, Tim's decision to go public. He knows he's risking his job by posting all this online.
And potentially facing legal action, too, right?
Yeah.
Depending on the specifics of his employment agreement.
Exactly, but he posts everything anyway.
Why do you think he did it?
Honestly. It's the million-dollar question. Maybe he felt like he had nothing left to lose. Maybe he was desperate for someone to believe him. Or maybe, and this is a thought that really creeps me out,
Go on.
maybe he was being pressured, manipulated by whatever was happening in that facility.
Okay, now that's a thought that'll keep you up at night.
Right. So many questions and so few answers. It's like Tim's story is this giant puzzle with a bunch of missing pieces. But I think that's what makes it so fascinating. It's like we're all trying to solve a mystery together, piecing together clues from these fragmented videos and audio recordings.
A digital age ghost story. And like any good mystery, it's the unanswered questions that stay with you long after you've finished the story.
So where does that leave us? What can we learn from Tim Saver and his experiences at that, well, whatever you want to call it, haunted workplace? I don't know. But it makes you realize how much power a story can have, especially in our digital age.
Absolutely. We live in a world where anyone can share their experiences with the click of a button. And whether we choose to believe those stories or not, they have this incredible power to capture our imaginations and make us question the world around us.
It really does make you think. So do you believe Tim's story? What do you think happened in that massive, mysterious facility? Let us know. Join the conversation online, and until next time, keep it creepy.